Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's good to be with you today. Thanks for joining me. We are going to look at 5 things that come out of the bye week for the Raiders that I think you should find encouraging. And I would encourage you to listen to all 5. I think one of them in particular may surprise you that I see it as something of an encouragement. But if you saw Antonio Pierce's press conference today, I thought he was lit. I thought he was fired up. I think the team's fired up. I've had several people asking me about a team meeting that allegedly went very negative. I can tell you this: I don't have enough details to comment on it. However, I've talked to enough people that were uh, privy to it that every one of them stated they felt it was good. Um, One person's exact words were anybody trying to present that as a negative meeting clearly wasn't in the room. I don't know enough details to get into them. I'm working on it. Hope to get them for you, but that's how it was presented to me. So I'm not going to really address it other than to tell you that. Headed to Miami this weekend, obviously, for the big game with the Dolphins. And let's talk about 5 things that I think came out of the bye week. Number one, you saw a bunch of holistic changes by the Raiders on offense. And what does that tell you? Well, when you let coaches go that have contracts, that's money that the owner is saying goodbye to. And it shows you once again, Mark Davis is absolutely committed to winning. And he's willing to say, okay, whatever you guys think you got to do to fix this thing, fix it. I'll write the check. I can tell you this: I have a very dear friend who works for another NFL team that texted me when this broke and said this should convince anyone who even remotely is fooled and thinks that Davis doesn't care. If he was tanking, he would have said make no changes. If he was being cheap, he would have said make no changes. Instead, he's like, do whatever you got to do. Let's just win. I think that move showed you where Mark Davis's heart is. Now, listen, I don't have to say this. I don't work for the team. I've been critical of Mark in the past. Haven't been, quite frankly, have not been in a while because I don't think he's earned it. And I'm not going to be critical just to be critical, but that doesn't have impact on my coverage. And I get a lot of grief from Raider Nation when I say positive things about Mark. But I think the organization is trending in the right direction. I know they're 2-7. I'm not stupid. But I think Mark continues to say, I'll do whatever needs to be done, but somebody's got to give me a plan that works. And I think that's the first thing. And I think it showed everyone around the league the Raiders are not tanking. And it showed everyone around the league Mark Davis is still willing to write checks for people not to be employed by him because his football people that he trusts tells them that's what they need to do to be competitive. I think that's a big deal. Um, I think it showed the fact that AP wants to make these changes. He is fighting, crawling, scratching to get this franchise moving in the right direction. I think that was a very big deal. A lot of guys would have said, I'm just going to stay the line, hope it turns. Uh, they don't want their pride to be, okay, I made a bad hire. None of that. That's not what they want. That's not how this guy operates. He is fighting and scratching and pulling and doing everything he can. Again, if you did not see his press conference today, you need to go see his press conference. It was, this is a guy fired up. Colton Miller's limited. We don't know where he's going to be this week. JPJ's playing at center. And I mean, he talked openly about some staff changes, the offense of staff. I think you saw with Delmar, his technique, Delmar DJ Glaze, the mule, his technique is farther past JPJ, who's playing very well, but in a very attack UFC type approach. And I think you're going to see them begin to work with JPJ at a high level on his technique. I think you're going to see some things from the offense. And, AP didn't come out making bold promises, just saying we're doing whatever we got to do to try to get to a winning place. I think that's a big deal. Third thing is I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. Um, I when you add a Norv Turner, when you give one of the greatest offensive minds in NFL history, Joe Philbin, more authority, especially at a position that he knows so well, offensive line. You give Scotty Turner a chance. A lot of people thought Scotty Turner should have got the OC last year when Bo Hardigree got it. We talked about that a lot. A lot of people thought Scotty Turner should have got it this year. Well, he got it now. And then you bring in his dad. You're bringing in a lot of experience, a lot of proven guys. There's not going to be panic. Um, I had one person tell me it just seemed to be under the Raiders' offense. It was a little bit of panic. Somewhere in that second quarter, third quarter, it just seemed like in almost every game, there just seemed to be some panic. Okay, what are we going to do? There's not going to be that. It's just going to be the calm. And that calm is going to be sent down and back through the staff. I mean, the players. I think this was so you not only what Mark Davis did, not only what AP did, but then when you look at the guys he's given the reins of this offense to, that's a very big deal. The fourth one is the players. They embraced it. They embraced it. Again, I know there were some reports that there was a meeting that was negative. I was not in the meeting and have not been given enough information to report on it. But the information I've gotten from people privy to the meeting said it was really good. It was, players being vocal, coaches being vocal, people caring. That should tell you something. These players are all in. AP made a comment on Wednesday in his press conference about, you can be critical of me, you can be critical of this, be critical of that, but you can't be critical of, this team is all in. And that's true. The players are there fighting, scratching, crawling, and they're ready to go. They're not looking for reasons to sit the bench. They're not looking for reasons to get out. They want to be here. They're fighting. They're scratching. They're crawling. This is a desperate franchise, and sometimes when you use that term desperate, it takes a different tone with different people. Sometimes when you use that word desperate, it takes a different angle with people. They make it almost sound like no hope. That's not what I mean when I use the term desperate here. This is a team that is embarrassed. They know they're better than they've performed, and they're absolutely fighting. They're desperate to show this is not who we are. What a move to come out and say Gardner Minshew's the guy. Now, you may say, I've seen enough that I don't think Gardner's the person. Okay, I respect that. But if AOC's not there, if they were tanking, they wouldn't have done a lot of the things they did this week, but they would have just said, all right, let's go with Desmond. No, they're like, no, we're still battling. This Raider team is getting on the big old jet airliner, and they're flying down into the heat and humidity of South Beach. And they're going there with the utter intent of winning. That is the game plan. That is what they're doing. That is the modus operandi of what they're up to. You're looking for reasons to be encouraged. There's four. And now I'm going to give you the fifth one. Now I'm going to give you the fifth one. Well, before I do, because that's the biggest, I want to say one more thing. I understand fans talking about tanking. I don't blame fans for talking about tanking. But you don't want your players and coaches tanking. You don't want that acceptance of losing seeping into your franchise. It is a drug that destroys. And those four things I just gave you are reason enough to know from your owners to your managers to your coaches to your players, all four levels are bought in. Win now. And then we come to number 5. Fifth reason to be excited coming out of the bye week. The Raiders are tied for the worst record in the NFL. You say, wait a minute, Hondo, You just gave me 4 reasons to be excited about this team and all had to do with a winning mentality. But now you're telling me number 5 is they're tied for the worst record in the National Football League? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. If they turn it around, bam, you should be excited about what this franchise did, no quit. But if they're not able to with the same players, then they stay in the hunt for the number 1 overall pick. Now, if they don't get the right pick, it's all for naught. And we're going to get into that a lot later. Not in this podcast, but coming up. A lot later. But the point of the matter is, your organization has given you 4 reasons why they're still fighting, scratching, clawing to win. And at the end of the day, you still have the number 1 overall pick in your sights if this too doesn't work. That should encourage you. You're either going to see winning football or you're going to see a quest for the number 1 pick. Now, I get it. I understand why fans are like, screw it. I don't want to win another game. I'm going to read you an email. I don't think it's a fair email, but I'll read it to you. This comes to us from Greg P. Greg P says, Dear Hondo, I want to see the Raiders trade for Derek Carr. As you know, was Derek's biggest critic when he was with the Raiders. So get him here. So there's no chance of us winning another game and getting the number 1 overall pick. Okay. I can't do anything about that. You can't do anything about that. But I understand people saying, no, but it doesn't matter. What do you do with the number 1 pick? The point is, though, those are 5 big reasons. 5 very big reasons. Very big reasons. That should tell you to be encouraged about your Raider team and where they are today. Now, I want to address one other quick thing. I got a mess of email from a podcast I did in Hawaii earlier this week, in which I had a young man email in who was thinking about giving up on the Raiders, and his grandfather and father had been Raider fans, but they hadn't won his whole life. I think he was 15. And I'm going to read you a couple emails, positive to what I said and negative to what I said, and I want to address it. First one comes to us from Brandon Vanoit. Vanoit. He says, Hondo, shut up. Utterly disgusted listening to you try to convince this kid to stay a Raider fan. The best thing he could ever do is move on. It's a sick addiction that makes most of us miserable. Okay? The next one comes in from Y, if that's just his first initial, Y Noiden. Y Noiden says, Hondo, you should be embarrassed of yourself. You say you're not a fan, and then you give an impassioned speech to a young man to follow the Raiders. What a joke. Why don't you just be honest and say you're a fan? I am being honest. I'm not a fan. Got a lot of friends in the organization. I want the organization to do well. My wife and son are Raider fans. Dexter's running around the house right now wearing his Raider hoodie. No. Okay, now here comes another one. This is from Craig B. Craig B says, Hondo, I loved your impassioned speech to the young man who was thinking of turning on the Raiders. I have been a Raider fan for a long time, as my dad was. My son and grandson now are. You're right, it's a family thing. You may not be a fan, but you understand us. That may have been your best podcast. That's from Craig B. And the last one is from Matt H. Matt H says, Hondo, absolutely loved your discussion with the young man about why he should remain a Raider. My God, Hondo, I know you're not a Raider fan, but you should be. You put it so eloquently. Okay, here's what I want to address. I don't care if you agree with me or disagree with me. I'm not God. I'm cool with that. It's all good in the hood. I'm fine. I'm fine with that. But what I think you need to understand is that you can be frustrated with your team. And I don't think anybody in this organization, I know Mark Davis isn't happy. I know AP isn't happy. I can tell you I don't think Tom Telesco's happy. I don't think the players are happy. I don't think the coaches are happy. I don't think anybody's happy. It's a lot more fun covering a winning team. It's probably a lot more fun rooting for a winning team. But when that's your team, it's your team. It's your team. And you'll always hear people. I grew up in Michigan where the Lions were always terrible. But for the most part, everybody in Michigan just loves them. They show up and they love them. So now that the Lions are winning, all the people in Michigan who loved them for all these years, I mean, I feel great for them. I'm not a Lions fan, but I feel great for them. But they're all laughing at the people who hated the Lions and are now saying, "Oh yeah, that's my team. I'm from Michigan." Well, if you weren't rooting for them when they were losers, you don't deserve to enjoy them now. This is some tough times in Raider Nation. This has been a really, really tough 20 years. But they're turning it. They'll turn it. It's cyclical. And when they do, you got a lot of reasons to be excited. Appreciate y'all. Hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening tonight. God bless y'all. We'll see you again tomorrow. Again, 5 reasons to be excited about your Raiders coming out of the bye week. Have a great one. We'll see you all again tomorrow. Zeke's going to join me on tomorrow's podcast. See you then.